dance and ballet in particular are an art form, and if you get too obsessed with the body and what the body's doing, it becomes potentially a little bit more like a sport. And I think that the art form comes in the self-expression, and it comes in potentially if you're in a ballet and it's a narrative ballet telling a story, but it can also come through a contemporary work where you're expressing, you're performing, you're doing something beyond yourself. Hi Petra.
Hi Jo. How are you?
Thank you. How are you? Lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you too. I saw you had this wonderful awareness or raising awareness to the National Youth Ballet over November and December.
Yes.
And that caught my eye, and I was really wondering because I think we all notice things now, and or notice that everybody has been affected during this pandemic. And I know the National Youth Ballet from the time that I lived in London or in Windsor, and I know about it, and it was for me so interesting to to see all these posts that you've done in this wonderful way of raising awareness.
Oh, thank you. When did you know National Youth Ballet?
Well, two of my children are ballet dancers, and from a young age we were aware of they didn't took part in anything there, but we were aware of the National Youth Ballet. And I know you do some wonderful work, and the teachers there are also doing some great work. So I just thought it would be so nice to hear from you and to really, tell me more about what you are doing and how wonderful this program is really for young dancers.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for contacting us. It's so brilliant to hear from you. And yeah, I think that National Youth Ballet has been around for 30 years or so. So it's been around a long time. And during that time, the company's really evolved. And it was founded by a wonderful woman called Jill Tukey. And she had a real passion for bringing young dancers to the stage, but also she was very, very interested in costume design. So she designed a lot of the costumes, and she was almost like a bit of a Diaghilev. She'd bring lots of really exciting people together. So designers, set designers, choreographers, musicians. And I'd say for the first kind of 25 years of the company's history, they'd stage lots of big ballets. It'd be like a one-off performance. And the young people, I was one of them, would get a real insight into what it is to put a ballet on stage. So not just what's happening on stage, which is of course really important, and all the professionalism that's needed there, but also what's happening backstage, how everything gets put on, like seeing the kind of stage management working, seeing the costume people working. So you've got a real insight into the whole workings of what goes into putting a performance on stage. And it was an amazing experience for me. And many of my colleagues who I met there have gone on to do incredible things. And I do think that obviously that's to do with their training outside of National Youth Ballet, but I do think that's also to do with the kind of the inspiration and the creativity that they found within being part of the company. Sadly, Jill died in 2016. And then since then, the company's really evolved. And in the last couple of years, we've really been putting a focus on mental health and well-being, mainly because of the pandemic, and seeing that we couldn't access performances in the same way that we could before. We couldn't stage performances in the same way that we could before. So we were kind of trying to look at, the whole dancer and supporting the whole dancer through this time. So in 2020, we ran a program called Bouncing Back, which was like an online series of classes, but it had a strong element of health and well-being within it, specifically looking at healthy body, healthy mind, preparing yourself to go back into training, because it happened at the end of August, before dancers were going back into the studio. And I think there was quite a lot of anxiety about that, because everyone had been in lockdown for such a long time in 2020. And then we've carried that work on. So last year we delivered a series of Moving Minds workshops, which are like online workshops to improve young dancers' confidence and well-being, and we're planning to develop that work further. So we're going to plan to reach more young people, and we're really embedding, now we're going back into performance, we're embedding all of that work, all of that kind of confidence building, good healthy practice, which isn't always the case in ballet practice particular, to how we shape our programs. So that's a bit of a potted history. And then we've always had, inspired by Jill, this Beyond Ballet programme, which looks at supporting young artists to make new work, to discover new things. So in the last year, we've really developed that Beyond Ballet programme. We've been supporting 3 young artists to take part in kind of learning through doing activities. So taking part in our activities through learning. Then they've had mentoring throughout the autumn. So all 3 of them had mentoring with different mentors, professional skills development with different choreographers. We had Jess from Jess and Morg's film. So that was all about dance for film. Jess and Morgs do a lot of work with Scottish Ballet and English National Ballet. And that was looking at how ballet can be filmed for the film as opposed to choreographed just for the stage. Drew McConey gave a chat about I think going into musical theatre. I talked about I've got to practice in movement direction. I talked about that, and wonderful NYB alumni Richard Chappell gave a very good talk about just managing yourself within the industry and supporting yourself and finding funding and all of that. So they've had a really good, I think, range of people to talk to them. And then this year they're getting the chance to create a short work for Sheffield. So they're going up to Sheffield and they're making a short work with a collaboration with the youth orchestra up there, which is really exciting. And then they'll have a chance to make a work in the summer for our residential performance company. So, yeah.
This is wonderful. I mean, just how the company started or the organization started is so interesting, because I think this is always this thing for me where I think when young dancers, they go to ballet class every day or once a week, and they do their training and they do their exams, but to give them the opportunity to do something like this where they can see the real what goes on behind the scenes and the production. And I think that will also give them the idea of, is this what I want to do? Or maybe they haven't thought of doing it, and then they think, hey, this is what I want to do. So I think this was such a wonderful idea to do that.
And it goes kind of beyond. So in the last couple of years, we focused on choreography, but we also aim to support stage managers, young costume designers, people, creatives who are at the early stages of their career, who can learn through working with us. So this summer, for example, we will be recruiting a young stage manager and a young costume designer, and they'll get the chance to kind of go through the programme, learn through doing, and then have the mentoring in the autumn term. So yeah, I think Jill was very passionate. She gave a lot of young people. She's very passionate about developing young talent, and she gave a lot of opportunities to young choreographers. Certainly Drew McConey, who's now working, he's at the moment, I think, choreographing a Take That film. He was given an opportunity to choreograph at a very young age. Same with Ariel Smith, who's just made a piece for English National Ballet. They both got really good opportunities to choreograph at a very young age. And I think that Jill's ethos of looking beyond just the dance career and looking more widely at all the different aspects, that ways that you can develop your skills within theatre, is really, really something that we're trying to build on as a company.
Well, that's amazing. And I think during this time of the pandemic, we have realized how much or how connected everything is. And I think, you go to the theatre and you see the production, but you never realize what goes on behind the scenes. And there's like you say, there's a costume designer who's worked for this for how many months, and the planning behind it and the makeup and all that. And I think from a young age to give that to children, that awareness, and that you say that it's not just about the dancers who are on stage, but it's also the backbone of this whole production.
I think I think that's just really vitally important. And also, I think it has to be realistic about a dance career. It's a wonderful career. It's a fantastic career. You get to do what you love, and you get to perform some amazing places, and it can be really exciting. You get to travel. But ultimately, a little bit like a footballer, there's a kind of a longevity in terms of a career in dance. So I think trying to offer young people skills beyond just being a dancer and kind of letting them see what other options there are is really important to us. And it kind of feels like a moral obligation to make sure that these young people can see all the different aspects of theatre as it is.
Yeah. Now, and also, I think what the pandemic brought about was really looking into things in a different way, or seeing things in a clearer way. And you were talking about the mental health, and that you do a lot for mental health for dancers. Now, it is an industry, I think, where there is a lot of pressure on young children, from a young age, and especially. What I've thought about is it's on the age where your body develops and changes, not usually the way you think, or it happens in such a quick way that it just then changes the way their bodies look. And for ballet, that's also part of it. How important is it that you think the ballet as an art form should focus more on creating or having these young dancers develop their artistry, rather than so much focus on the body or what the body is able to do?
I think that's a really thought-provoking question, and I think that dance and ballet in particular are an art form, and if you get too obsessed with the body and what the body's doing, it becomes potentially a little bit more like a sport. And I think that the art form comes in the self-expression, and it comes in potentially if you're in a ballet and it's a narrative ballet telling a story, but it can also come through a contemporary work where you're expressing, you're performing, you're doing something beyond yourself. And I think that with Instagram and these TikTok and all these great exciting ways of connecting people, which I think are fantastic in many ways, I think sometimes there can come, especially during the pandemic, I think there became quite an obsession with how high you could lift your leg and how you looked, and there was quite an obsession on look. And certainly we had a really interesting advisory committee. We got together a brilliant group of NYB alumni and interesting people within the within the industry. And one of the things we were really talking about in that artist advisory meeting was about the fact that quite often young people are very keen to be able to have the perfect body and to do 101 pirouettes, but they might not necessarily have had the chance to really develop the artistry and the thing that makes a performer special. And especially with the pandemic, that's been a particularly hard thing to kind of to nurture, because you can do all sorts of things. You can stretch, you can do whatever you want really to your body, but it's really important that you find that artistry and that self-expression, I think. And so I think there needs to be a real focus in ballet training on the artistry, and I think that can sometimes, in my own experience of teaching, it can sometimes help young people who are perhaps going through a bodily change, as you talk about, and I think that focus on artistry can help people maybe let go a little bit of the kind of aesthetic a bit more.
Because I mean, I interestingly, I had an interview with a dancer who was a principal dancer at English National many years ago. She's in her 80s now, and Liliana Fiore, I think is her name, if I can remember. But she said something very interesting. She said that the dancer is not just the body; it's the heart and the soul and the and the artist, and I think so many times, if that could be for young people that that they understand that as well. And I think, and I asked her what changed from when, because she was telling how her teacher nurtured that in her, not about the feet and so on. And she said, and I asked her, but where should the change come? And she said, with the teachers. The teachers should bring the change.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that one of the things we want to do with our Moving Minds program is just give our teachers and everybody who works with this a real sense of how to build confidence, how to build artistry, how to support students, so that it's not just the students having to do it for themselves, which can sometimes be quite difficult in a stressful environment, which can be dance, but the people who are delivering the work are also really mindful of giving them space to develop their artistry, to develop their confidence, to develop their self-esteem, because I believe you can't ask a young dancer to deliver a brilliant performance if they're feeling scared. So that creating that sense of confidence, well-being, all of those things is really important to us, so that they're feeling really emboldened and able to give of their best.
Well, I've seen on your Instagram page, it's such a uplifting, positive page, really, I think, and your teachers also, when they speak, this has really attracted me. I think it's wonderful work that you're doing there. And also what I thought, that I've spoken to many dancers during the lockdown time as well, while they were in lockdown, and we spoke about the bodies and how frustrating that was, that they couldn't move. But we also spoke about education, in the sense that what do you think about dance being part of the curriculum, for example, in schools, where it's not necessarily for children who would want to become dancers, but that there are more opportunity for any child to just move, to just have the possibility to do some sort of ballet or some sort of dance during their school career?
I think that it is one of the most powerful and easy things to access in terms of an art form. Like we've all got a body, and our bodies are all different, and that's wonderful that our bodies are all different, but everybody will have some kind of rhythm within them. And I really believe passionately that all children should have the chance of having dance in school. And it was very interesting researching, because we're doing this collaboration with this youth orchestra, and we're doing some workshops in schools, which is really exciting. And I was researching at what level, I was looking into the key stages and when they have music and what's in the music curriculum, and then I was looking at what's in the dance curriculum. And music has its own curriculum, and it's really valued in schools. And dance there's about one line about dance at the bottom of the sports curriculum, and it's really sad, because I actually think that dance isn't a sport. Yes, it's good for the physical body, and yes, it's good for your health in terms of fitness and all of those things, but it's much more about self-expression. And for me, it comes under expressive arts as well as sport, and that's what makes it so special. But I do think that it's brilliant. I think everyone should have access to it, but I also think that it's quite unfair to try and expect, like which is what happens in the UK, I think, often, like a games teacher or a sports teacher to be teaching dance, because it is actually specialist. And I think that is potentially where a problem could arise, because you need to have skills to be able to teach dance. And so just saying, we want dance, but we've not got the budget, which schools don't. They don't have massive budgets. We don't have the budget for a dance teacher, and then just getting the PE teacher to teach dance. It's a real pot of luck then, isn't it? Because they might be really good at it, or they might not be interested at all. And for me, as you've identified, in order to engage young people with dance, you need really strong teachers and people who care about it. Yeah. So ideally a dance teacher in every school, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that will happen, but it should happen, because it would make
Let's make the wish, because I've been really wishing that art can be a part of school curriculums, that it's alongside maths and science and as important as maths and science. And I think the more we speak it out, the more possibility there is that the right people will hear, you know. So I appreciate that you said that it should happen. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes I think there's a kind of a tradition of teaching kind of in schools at the moment, which perhaps is quite a lot about teaching to the test at the moment. But I think that dance could be used actually to help teach things like maths, English, science. Like if you approach it creatively, there's loads of ways that could be really helpful to teach all of the kind of the standard subjects. You just need a very creative teacher, you need a very imaginative teacher, but that could really engage some students who perhaps don't identify or find it hard to engage with a kind of conventional education system. There's many different ways of learning, as we all know, and I think that sometimes you can engage different people. If you're engaging with the body, kind of might engage more people more widely. So,
well, I came across a YouTube video that actually explained how the Cecchetti syllabus is based, or the movements are based really on scientific principles. And I was so amazed. I really didn't realize that. And that's 100% right. What you say, I can just see a science lesson coming out of that, out of a ballet lesson, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've actually known some people who've gone through university and studied science, like physics specifically, and then they've come into dance later in life, but because they've got a really good understanding of physics, they've actually been able to get into dance quite quickly because they've understood how the body works, because they've got a really good understanding of physics. It's a very different way in, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, I can just imagine that now, 100%. So Jo, what would your advice be now for a young dancer? Because through this pandemic also, I think a lot who are now in training, for example, and there's so much negativity about talking about the future of theatres and things like that. What would your advice be now for a young dancer?
I think my advice would be to work hard, to really realize that you're doing it because you enjoy it, because I think sometimes you can forget that. We're very lucky to be able to be at this level and to be working at this level. So work hard, realize that you do enjoy it, and then be willing to be flexible, I think, for the future careers, because I do think that, as you allude to, theatre is in a difficult position. I think it will come back. I think that everybody loves live performance, and I do think live performance will really, really come back in the next few years. I think there'll be a real rush for it. But in terms of for young dancers who are going into the industry, I think just be able to think creatively and think flexibly, and try not to limit yourself as to what you think success is, because success can mean loads of different things to lots of different people.
Yeah, no, that's true. And what is your wish now for the future?
For post-pandemic?
Yeah.
I think that we all feel confident to go back to theatres, that theatres are supported, that the artists find a way to kind of make new work that is really relevant to what's going on in the world around them. That feels really important to me. And I won't mention any names, but I saw a work a few years ago when we were in the middle of the pandemic, and I just watched it and I thought, I didn't see the relevance to what was going on in the world around us. And I'm not saying that everything has to be like doom and gloom, but I think that there needs to be an emotional response, whether that's laughter or joy. Whether you need to kind of make a choice, I think, now when you're making work, about what's happened and not kind of just carry on as before. I think there needs to be a bit of a step change in terms of the work people are making, so that it's responding in some way. It doesn't have to be negative and doom and gloom. It can be funny, but that there's some kind of sense that something's changed, because I think the worst thing that could happen is that we try and just carry on as we were before, because I think we need to reset and build from a new place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean, and maybe also then use this art form to communicate hope, or something positive for the future.
Absolutely, because dance particular, I feel dance has got the power to communicate so much more than you can, with words. It goes beyond words. There's so much you can communicate with dance and movement and relationships. You just can communicate really well through movement. And I agree, I hope that there can be a message of hope that's portrayed through the work we're making, and that we're trying to make things that are positive, and that are responding to what's happened, and connecting people and bringing people together rather than kind of creating divides. And actually, I think sometimes there can be a bit of a divide when things get too, I think we want to make work that's really inclusive and will really engage many people to bring people together rather than dividing them.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a wonderful wish. No, I think it's important that we say these, we speak these wishes, really. But now I just have one last question for you, because I know the arts have been affected, and many people have been affected, but I'm asking artists now to do a shout out for their favorite coffee place or their favorite restaurant in the area. Do you have a favorite coffee shop?
I do. So I live in North Hampton. I've got a flat in North Hampton, which is a very small town, which not many people know about, but it's an unsung town. And there's a lovely coffee shop literally around the corner from me called Saints, Saints Coffee House. And I go there, and the guy who set it up, he set it up during the pandemic.
Really?
And he set it up during the pandemic, and it's a social enterprise, and it's not just selling great coffee, but it also does cocktails in the evening, actually, which is great. But it also is training young people who have potentially been out of work for a while and getting them back into employment. So
wonderful. Oh, that's great. So Saints, you say Saints?
Well, Saints on St Giles Street, St Giles in Northampton.
Okay. So I'll put the link in the description. Yeah, definitely.
No, and he's got an Instagram handle as well. So
so I'll tag him in it. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I love this. This is very brave to do it in the pandemic, and then also to help others as well. Yeah. Maybe I should talk to him too. I think.
Oh, you should absolutely talk to him. He's a fantastic man, and done loads of travelling, and then he's come back and bringing it back to Northampton and trying to make a difference in an area that it's got a lot of potential, the town, but it's also been unloved for quite a little while. So it's lovely to have somebody like that there who's trying to make a difference.
Oh, Jo, this was so lovely to talk to you now, and I wish you all the best for your work with the National Youth Ballet. Really, I'm so impressed with the work you're doing. It really feels so positive, and I wish your wish comes true, definitely.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Petra. It's been great to talk to you, and fingers crossed for hopeful works of art that bring people together.
Thank you, Jo. Have a lovely afternoon.
Will do. You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.